Today, we have an old friend with us, and it's my task to introduce to him you and his mother, Lillian, and then two acts of generosity. So let's start with the people. So sitting beside me is Dennis Judd, who's a longtime participant in and donor to the lecture series. Dennis has roots in Southern California, but he now lives in Sebastopol. He's a successful businessman, and he has also underwritten today's lecture, which is named for his parents. His parents are Emil and Lillian Judd, and this is the Emil and Lillian Judd Memorial Lecture. And Dennis has joined us today to introduce you to his mother, Lillian Judd, who is the star of the show. You will know Lillian very well by the end of class today. So Lillian was born in 1923 in Umbar, Czechoslovakia. That's present-day Uzhhorod in Ukraine. In 1938, Umbar was annexed by Hungary, which was allied with Nazi Germany. And after being confined to the Umbar ghetto, Lillian was deported by train to Auschwitz. She witnessed firsthand the murder of her father and the selection of her two youngest sisters for the gas chamber. However, Lillian and her sister Herzi survived not only Auschwitz, but Bergen-Belsen, Flossenburg, and the forced march before the end of the Second World War. After the conclusion of the war, Lillian married Emil Judd, who gave birth to a son, Irving. They emigrated to the United States in 1949 with $20 in their pockets, not speaking any English. They worked hard. They appreciated the freedom and opportunity of America. And in 1955, they had a second child, who was Dennis. Lillian and Emil Judd moved to Santa Rosa in 1956. And it was in Northern California that Lillian wrote a memoir about her experience in the Holocaust. It is called From Nightmare to Freedom, Healing After the Holocaust. Over the years, Lillian spoke to thousands of students in schools, as well as members of churches, synagogues, and service clubs. He always emphasized the importance of confronting anger before it becomes hatred, of forgiveness, and of helping others who are the victims of injustice. So Lillian died in 2016. You will meet her today via video. Now I'm left with two acts of generosity to introduce. The first is a book. Dennis has kindly given a book to every student who is enrolled in this class. The books are in these boxes up front. So before you leave today, make sure you grab a copy of the book. And if you want Dennis to sign it, I'm sure he will do so. The second gift is even more substantial. Dennis has endowed a fellowship, which we are officially announcing today. It is called the Judd Family Fellowship for the Study of Genocide and Persecution Stories. And we are issuing today a call for applications for 3 Judd fellowships for the next academic year. Each fellowship will be $4,000. I have a flyer that I will distribute to students in discussion section this evening. I'll describe the fellowship there and what it envisions in a bit more detail, so you know what we're looking for. Okay, finally, a word of warning. There's going to be an unusual amount of technological fiddling today because we're doing something we've never done before in a live classroom, which is live stream of video. So I think I got this all figured out. But I will turn the podium over to Dennis now. Dennis, that takes a few minutes to connect, a few seconds to connect. Have we connected yet?
Well, I think most of what I was going to say has just been said. So my parents were born in Umbar in Deportation, and they lived there when my grandparents were born in the same houses. They were Hungarians. When my parents were born, they were Czechoslovakia. If I would have been born in the same house, the houses haven't moved, I'd have been a Soviet Union dude. And if my son Daniel, who's 21 now, would have been born in the same house, he'd now be Ukrainian. So it's an interesting world that was there. It's changed and evolved on a routine basis. So Bushora is in the Carpathian Mountain area of what was Czechoslovakia. After the Russians came in contact, came in, they basically chopped that part off. They became part of the Soviet Union. My dad was born in a small town called Deportation, and it was further into the Carpathian Mountains. And back in 1991, I was able to go back there with both my parents. And it was exciting to see historically where my dad was from and where my mom was from. We actually found the house where my mom was born and we got into it. It brought back a lot of memories for her and for me. My dad was he's who I'm writing the second book about. And he was a character and he did a lot of special things. He was in the army back when Hitler and Chamberlain made the deal to basically give away Czechoslovakia to the Nazis. And being in the army, as well, it had to be, when the Nazis came in, they basically took out all the Jewish soldiers and put them in slave labor camps. And so he was in slave labor camps. As the Nazis moved forward, he was in Ukraine, he was in Kiev, he was in, I think out in Romania too, different camps. And spent probably 6 years of his life in camps. Was ultimately, they let him go. Time to go home to be with his family when he was picked up to go to Auschwitz. He ended up in Auschwitz and in Buchenwald. That's another bunch of story. My mom, I'll go to her. So my mom, that's the family picture. Right after my uncle Leonard, her older brother, came to America, he was able to get across on the Queen Mary on the last voyage from France before the war really took off. And his passport, which he left for me, showed his stamp and swastika on it. He went to France. So that was when the Nazis already sent him there. So this is a photo of them, which we were able to get because everything we had in Europe was gone. There was nothing left after the war. But we had some cousins that lived in America before the war. And this is one of the photos that we sent the cousins before the war. So we have to take copies of that. If we go to the next photo, this is another photo which I want to share specifically with you. When my parents moved up to Oakmont here in Santa Rosa, and I came to visit them one of my visits, and my mom's showing me the brochure. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and it's got this picture in it. And we goes, see, this is the picture of me when I got in the family when we got to Auschwitz. I'm looking at my mom's face, and I couldn't recognize her. It didn't look the same then that she did when she was in her 80s when I knew her. And she's showing it to me. And so then she showed me the previous photo, and I could see, they're the same people. And so this was taken by a Nazi photographer, a Nazi officer, I guess, who took photos we weren't supposed to. And the only time the photos really were taken in Auschwitz activities that were happening there. And I guess he left it with his girlfriend, and he passed away. And years later, she gave it to the, the Holocaust Museum, where she had his and it became known as the Auschwitz album. So Mom always wondered why was one of the few photos ever taken of her and her family. So you can see though that Mom, Lillian Judd is next to her. And two of them were who survived. Heina, which is my grandmother, she was with my aunts Renee and Irene, and they were both sent to the gas chambers immediately. But you'll hear that story. So my mom spent time. She wasn't always the happiest, friendliest, I would say. She wasn't always at ease with herself. She carried a lot of what happened during the Holocaust inside of her. And she woke up, and she'll tell you about this in her video. and she was able to start to write down her memoirs. And after she did that, she was able to start talking. And so she gave talks and lectures to literally thousands and thousands of students here in the North Bay and in other areas too. It was interesting how students were touched so much by her. From the example of, we were talking, I was with her when she was talking at Santa Rosa High School. They filled up the whole auditorium with like 950 seats. And when she was talking, it was just dead silence. You better say my mom's 5'2". She was pretty short. She was just, she was not very loud when she spoke. But the audience was just quiet. And it was interesting to look at the teachers on the side of the panel I was sitting, and they were shocked that they'd never seen that whole auditorium with dead silence when she was talking. And the other ways that things came back to me was like, we talked, I met one of the teachers from the probation hall, and mom would give a talk to the students, to kids at the probation hall. And the teachers, this like 4 or 5 months afterwards, he said, your mom talked. And it's a rough group to talk to there. And he said, the kids there are still talking about what your mom did, how she survived, what she did, how she's being able to go forward with her message of dealing with your anger, report terms of hatred, and learning how to deal and so forth. So there's so many stories like that to tell you about. What I felt was important after listening to all these different lectures and talks that she gave, is I felt it would be important for us to put something down, to record her talk, and so we can present it. So I hired a production crew to come in, and we set it up in her home, which is at home, and they videotaped me. They digitally taped her, and it was like 5 hours of taping, so it was really special. In 2016, we were coming to attend the lecture series here in the old auditorium, which had concrete steps up, and she just collapsed over the stairs and hit her head on the concrete, and turned out she had a stroke. And so it was really, that was a rough time for us all, and we decided it would be good if we could take that video of 5 hours and we could basically turn it into a 45-minute video so we could show it. Hopefully mom could sit next to it, sit on the auditorium and be there while it's being shown what she's talking, because she couldn't really talk after the stroke. And Professor Lori Lippman, who's teaching UC Davis, what can I do to help? And I said, can you help with the video? And she, oh, that'd be a piece of cake. I don't think so. But she came up and the house, she looked at the video, she said, this is the real part. So she ended up getting UC Davis, UC Davis, their audio department, to take it over the project. And we have the 45-minute video, which we can show you. We also showed the film right after COVID here at Sonoma State, and for the first time, and back opinions, comments back from students. And they were basically saying it would be better if we could put it in writing words that
Some captions.
Thank you. I got him trained to tell me the words like so he put up the sub captions, and then I was able to get Rabbi Emil from Chabad. He was able to add through his connections over in places. He had somebody helping to add different maps and stuff, so people, when they're seeing the film, can see where all of this stuff is taking place. So hopefully it's going to be a lot clearer and easier for you all to see it.
My name is Lillian Judd. I was born in Czechoslovakia, Uzhhorod.
So somehow
As Holocaust survivor.
had it.
I was 14 years old in 1938 when I completed my high school. And I was ready to go further schooling, just to study for some job, secretary or something. And the Hungarian army came in under Hitler, and it changed the whole situation. And life was hard. There were all kinds of different orders and intimidation passed all the time. We didn't know what brings tomorrow, but we heard something like they right away established a forced labor camp, and the boys from the camps used to come home for 2-3 days on weekends, and they were telling us about how they were killing the Jews on the Polish border, and made the Jewish people stand around them and undress. And then no sooner they were undressed, they didn't have much time to think about it, because the SS started to machine gun them down from every side, and they were just falling into the hole. And and as soon as all of them fell in, the bulldozer started to shovel the dirt back at them. Some people said, Polish people after the war, that the ground was moving for a long time. Later, they dehumanized us more and more. They gave orders, and we had to wear the yellow star on our outer garments. We could not go out, leave the house without them. And that will announce that I'm a Jew. The intimidation orders of departure or relocation started to come regularly. And in a few couple of weeks, it became a reality that we will have to leave. We came out to that point where we had to meet. And I saw that sight, made me sick. I can never forget it. Those little eyes, the children, the old people, so desperate, so sad. They had tears in their eyes. They were scared. They didn't know what to expect. They never told us where we're going or why. They just took us, or then they gave us orders to stand up by 5 to a row and start marching. We arrived somewhere. And there I looked up, and there was the old brick factory. And then the guard said, "Now, here you are. This will be your ghetto." And they opened the gate, and you go in. They did open the gates, high fence gates. They were all brought in, the children, the old people, and they were sitting in there, and they had some straw under them, and it looked like a zoo. It was terrible. They were all so wild looking. And we came in, and we didn't have where to sit, where to go, because those things were filled. So they just pointed out a piece of the cement or whatever there was on the ground, and told us that here, this is where you have to go and build yourself something to sleep under. And this was for 6 weeks. We didn't have food, we didn't have everything. And we were in the ghetto. We didn't know what's where. Sometimes, most of the times, in the evening, we sat together on the lawn, talking. There were a lot of people there that we didn't know. But we talked to them, and we talked to the people, and we made kind of friends. Then, end of the 6 weeks, came out the Hungarian soldiers. They picked us up and said, "You get ready for morning, take care of your hair, everything you have, and go and line up on that corner." And kept on doing this until there was a whole transport, a whole bunch of people. And we didn't know them. So we were asked, they stood out there, and we were standing up 5 to a row, and then a bunch of this little Hitler Jugends came, and they all had a switch, and the leader said that you have to move on because if not, those kids are here to help you with a switch. So I was just worried about that because he couldn't walk fast enough. So I said, bend on me, lean on me as much as you have to, and I'll help you, and we'll go faster so that we wouldn't get hit. And we did, all the way until we saw the railroad station. We looked up and we saw these black cars were all open, and as far as I could see to either side, they were covered. They were full of them. And all of a sudden they started to say, get in. Because we didn't expect to be in a wagon, so it took us time. And we go into the wagon, we take the little bags that we have, and there are so many people there that we can't even sit down anymore, or hardly. And they packed like this all the wagons, and at the end there were after all people, so they pushed in more and more into each wagon. Now I hear them closing the gates, and I hear the wheels starting to screech. And we run away. No water, no food, no toilet facilities. We're just going. We don't know how long, we don't know where. And then we stopped because they were taking in, I don't know whatever they were running the train with. They were taking in water and coal, I don't know. I was waiting there. Looked out on that station, and I saw there the men that were working there, happily smiling that they see the Jews going to be killed, because they knew where they're taking us, we didn't. So they took us to and they showed us, like, this is where you're going to be killed and all that. So they pressed us, and that they were so happy about it, even pressed us more. And the thing went on, and then we were going on the train, and we stopped again. I look up, we're still in Poland. But I saw the people on the station, working people. They were so sad. They had tears in their eyes, and they're looking at us, and they knew where they're taking us, so that's why they were very sad. These were the same people, same country's people, Poland. And the first group was happy to see us being killed. The second group was sad. I learned something there. I learned that you cannot judge a whole country for a group of people, or 2 groups of people. In the same country, there are good people and bad people. So at this point, we're going further. I don't know, I think that we were on the road already 4 days, nights, and I hear the train slowing down and stopping, screeching to stop. And when the gates opened, and I was standing there, right in front of me, I thought I'm going blind from the sun, from the light that came in from outside. And they were hollering at us, somebody, the Germans. Hurry up, get off the train. No, without the packages, get off. And then I have Dad who can come down from the train, And he was still holding that little thing, that little bag that he was holding with his prayer objects. Nazi saw it. And he came over and he turned the rifle butt around, and with the butt he started to hit him over his head, over his shoulders. Pretty soon the blood was just coming out. And I'm standing there and crying and looking, and I don't know what to do. And I just said, stop. But he didn't pay attention to me. And he just beat him until he fell. To me, it looked like it had, probably was. And was ready to hit. And I said, why did you have to kill him? He didn't do anything. And he turned around. And those eyes I never forget. So full of hatred. So full of ready to kill like an animal's eyes. And he lifted his thing, his rifle, butt, and said, you want to go with him? And I looked up at him and I turned away and put myself between the other people that were already gathering out from the other wagons. And he just motioned to two prisoners. And they ran over and they were in striped uniforms. They ran over and they picked up heads. Each one of them picked up one of his feet. One of his foot, and he was dragging them down on that uneven ground. And his head was bouncing and in bloody mark all the way to the truck that they were taking him, and then they threw him on that truck. I never saw him again. When my dad was murdered, I came to look for my mom. I noticed that there were no men, just women and children there. And I found them and I had to force lines, 5, and we were exactly 5. And mom was on the end, and she was seeing more what was going on ahead than I. And she was saying, oh, they are separating us. And if they remove any one of you from me, I'm as good as dead. And she kept on saying that and repeating it. And I had no word to consult her. I didn't know what to say. I needed somebody to put their arms around me too and tell me that everything's going to be okay. But there was no one. So we just kept walking, and very soon we came to the person that were separating. He was a good-looking officer in white uniform, white gloves, and just very quiet, very calmly moved his finger to the left and to the right. Pointing to him and to the right and to the left, and he just had to obey his finger. And then I found out later that was the infamous Dr. Mengele, Joseph Mengele. And I told my little sister, my sister Renee, who was the second sister from me. And I told her, Renee, pull yourself down a little bit so you could go with mom so she wouldn't be just with the baby. And I don't know if she did pull herself down or not, but she was taken with mom. And I have my life to think about. Did I give her the good advice, or would I be better off to be quiet? But at that time, I thought it was good. It was the best thing I could do. Calling was such wild names, the Nazis, such an ugly, terrible names. But they just pushed and hurry up and go. And there was no place to go because So we were so close together with the people that walked ahead of me, and if I would make a bigger step, I would step on her. And we were walking and walking until we came close to a building, a gray building. And when we came close, I noticed that people only went in 5 at a time, but nobody came out. So what happened? What's going on there? We found out. Maybe pretty soon after we came and we went in. We looked down on the floor, and there was thick layer of hair, all colored hair, different shades, different colors on the floor. And about six Germans hollering, take everything off, take all your clothes off. And I didn't move because I figured I never undressed in front of men. Maybe they're gonna go out. So I could undress. They didn't go out, and I didn't undress. And their helpers, the girls, came and started to pull my clothes off and throw it on the floor. And I said, why are you throwing my clean clothes on the floor, on the dirty floor? How am I going to find them? She says, you won't have to find them. You will just have to, they will give you other clothes. And they just pushed me into a chair naked. And I see her coming up with something shiny in her hand. And I look, and it is a shaver. And she comes and she starts to shave my hair. And I grabbed her hand and just started pushing her. And I said, what are you doing? She said, be quiet. Be quiet. We have to do it. And I couldn't do anything else but be quiet anyhow. So they shaved my hair and every hair on my body and everybody else's. And he said, now go into that other room. I go to the other room naked, just shoes on. No hair, no clothes. I had the shoes they let us keep. Go in there, and I looked around. There were a few people there already. And I figured that's why the brother came out after they went in. And then Herzi came in. And she looked. I started to cry when I saw her. I couldn't see myself. There were no mirrors or anything for me to see how I looked. But when I saw her, I started to cry. What did they do that to that beautiful little girl? She was a very pretty little girl. And they got her hair and naked. She just looked terrible, and I looked terrible. And we both started to cry. All of a sudden, the cold water was opened, and we were getting a shower. At first, it shocked us, the cold water, but then we enjoyed it, how good it felt. After 4 days, to get finally washed up. And they were hollering, now are you out for Seelapper? I didn't know what Seelapper was. We did not have a towel. They didn't, some girls said, how come they don't give us a towel? We had to dry outside. It was so cold outside. I was freezing. I thought my bones were freezing. We had to stand there naked. That was so embarrassing, so dehumanizing. And on the other side, much further, on the other side, I saw the men, they were taking the men, probably to do the same thing. And I just said, God, please make me invisible. We were still standing there until finally they let us go. They led us into the building and said, now you come and you get some clothes. And those were clothes And when they had later, I found out about it, that later they had the elections, and some people were already not fit for work, so they took them to the crematorium, to the gas. And those clothes that they took off from those people, they were giving it to us. We were lucky that we got the water, but the other groups got the gas at the same place, and then the crematorium. But we didn't know it yet. So anyways, we were marching. We were put together and we were marching to one place. And that was the sea lager called. And there, a number 32 stood. And that's where that was supposed to be our home. Now we have to wait until the block supervisor comes out and receives us. So I was looking around what was there. I saw there a big building, and on the building there was a small glass window. And I could see all the naked heads there. And I said, which one am I? They all looked like monkey. Which monkey am I? And I'm looking and I couldn't recognize myself. Then I went like this and like this, and I recognized myself. And then I started to cry. And I saw how I looked. So then we were standing some more longer, because then she took us in and she said, my name is Edith, and I'm from Slovakia. And I'm here for 4 years already. And you will do what I tell you, or else. And here are my 12 helpers. They all had having canes in their hand and the feet, and the authority to lead us. 10 minutes later, that we are there, we all jumped up and we ran to the gates. And the broadcaster came out, the block supervisor, and says, what do you think you're doing? What's the matter with you? She says, and we said, we want to see our family. And she says, you can't. And go back. And they pushed us back to the box. And about 5 minutes later, they went into the room and jumped up again, ran to the gates. This time she came out and she says, so you want to see your family? And we said, yes. Okay, and she takes us a key. And we thought, how could she change so fast? Before she let us see our family. Now she's opening the gate and she's going to let us see our family. Wonderful. She opens the gate. We saw outside was dark already. And the smell, such an obnoxious smell, made us feel like throw up. They were burning the human flesh. And that smell is terrible. I look up at the ceiling and in the sky, and it was a vivid red. The whole sky I could see was vivid red. And all that redness came from the crematorium that was there, not far from us. I couldn't figure out what is this? Where is that redness coming? And I'm just waiting, like all of us, to be taken to see our family. We thought they were in another barrack. And she says, you want to see your family? Yes. Look up, there they are burning. And she pointed to the sky. And we believed her. We believed that they were there burning. Because we smelled it. And we saw the people going, more and more people going. And then we started to cry. We were pushed to bed. We were crying all night. We didn't want any dinner. We were crying all night. Then we were there about a week when they called us out and said, extend your left arms. stand up and stand in one single row, and we had to pull our sleeves. We had sleeves up, and some woman came with something that looked like a fountain pen in her hands. But she started to push it into my arm. It didn't feel like a fountain pen because it was hurting, and the blood was coming out, and the ink was mixing with the blood. And I said, "We're surely going to get some infection." And sure enough, 2 days later, it was infected. They had no antibiotics, and nobody even looked at it. It just, they couldn't keep it clean, there was no water. It was just by nature, it dried out, and we had the number. From then on, we were the numbers only. Finally, they found us a work. They were in between, always calling for selections, and they were always separating us. And boy, that was so scary, especially like I have my sister, so I didn't want her to be taken away from me. So I always put her in front of me, and I always thought that if they're going to put it, I'm watching which way they're separating us. If I see stronger people on one side and the weaker on the other side, I'm going to see where her head goes. She goes to the stronger people when I flex my muscle, which there wasn't much. And if I see her go to the weaker side, then I just let go. That's what I decided to do. But thank God I never had to, because we always went the same way. Then we were taken to another place, and they were choosing people for where they were supposed to make cloth. We took three cut brocades and one rubber. We made a knot on the end and hooked it on the nail on the table. And then we had to braid it like you would braid hair. And there was a big long table, chair for everybody. In front of each chair, there was a nail knocked into the table. And they gave us a quota how many meters we had to do a day. And we were trying it, and I was so slow at it, and I was trying so hard. I was always the last one to finish my quota. And they were always threatening us, if you don't finish your quota, they put you out and keep the house with the cold water on you until it freezes to death. One day, this lady comes over to us. They came there with 3 daughters, and and she says, "You know, kids, Yom Kippur is coming up."
Dennis wants to say something here.
I don't know how many people have heard or know about Yom Kippur. So I just wanted to mention that it's one of the holiest holidays of the Jewish tradition. Can you hear? Yeah. Yes. So it's a holiday of Day of Atonement, where Jewish people basically fast during the day, 24 hours, no food, no water, and it's a time where you basically pray to or to ask for forgiveness. If you've done anything wrong, ask people to give forgiveness to. And so it's important for you both to know what you hear now, this next story.
How about let's do something so we could keep Yom Kippur? And let's make a little bit extra toward our quota every day, so we could have the quota completed. And we all did that, even I. And we would just keep doing it and never found out what they're going to do with it. But we were doing it, and then Yom Kippur comes. We were pretending to work, but the couple noticed it. And she noticed it by the girl two chairs away from me. And she came over and she started to go like this, looking what do we have here that we don't work? And she found her bundle, and she said, what's this? It's not working. And she beat her up so that the poor kid could hardly talk afterwards. And they beat me like this on the head, so that the head felt like it was flying off. She came to the next to me, the girl. I found hers and beat her up. Came to me and beat me up so that I saw double, triple. And then I just said, God, why? Why, God? I'm following your law. I'm following your commitment. No, it's the word. Commandment. What am I doing wrong? Please, at least take her strength away so she wouldn't have enough strength to beat Herzi up. Herzi was a couple just. Sure enough, she came to afternoon to the next one and beat her up, and then she said, why are you going to me? I have got any strength. I can't go on. And she ran away. So thank God that God listened to me. Stopped her before Herzi was beaten. Because after this, I had mixed feelings as far as religion. I was beaten on Yom Kippur because I tried to do what the right thing, and she was Herzi, but Herzi was saved because I asked God for it. We were struggling like this until December. Brother gave us orders to line up for sale, and we didn't want to go out. We rebelled. And then the Nazis came with their gun and started to shoot in the barracks. They took us to the shower, they shaved us again everywhere, and we were ready to go someplace, only we didn't know where. We got in those boxcars, and they even gave us a bucket of water. And then pretty soon, by the thread, and we look up and it says, welcome to, we're stopping there, and it says, welcome to Bergen-Belsen. It was a deadly camp. And we stopped and we were getting out, tired, hungry, cold, and there were no place to go. There were buildings there, they were all occupied. And there was men there. They pointed out a small little circle. This is where you stay. Somebody, and I was so sick already because I had a bladder infection and I was very sick. And there was no place to even wash. I said to the two girls, two Hungarian girls, and to my sister, because by then we made friends. I said, I am getting out of here. And they looked at me, they thought I went crazy. Wouldn't be surprised if I did, but no, I really wanted to get out of there. How are you going to get out of it? I said, I don't know yet, but I want to get out of it. I don't know, otherwise I would die here in this place. And I don't want to die after what I went through in Auschwitz. So, we dropped the subject and we were just sleeping on the ground, on the cement. Then a couple morning later, we went out for a walk, 4 of us. And I saw there a man standing in uniform, in civilian clothes, nicely dressed, and a few women are standing in front of him, and he's selected. Hey, there is our chance. I said, I'm going in the line. She says, what? The older girl said, what if they take us to a worse place than this? I said, I don't think there is a worse place anymore than this. And I'm going, whoever wants to come with me, fine. If you all want to stay, that's your business. They followed me, all three, my sister and those two sisters. Stood in line, And they were selecting all the Hungarian sisters to the right to go, and Herzi over there, and me, they pushed on the other side. I don't know what they were looking for, but me pushed on the other side. And I'm pushing myself back quietly, sneakily. I'm pushing myself back because I don't want to stay here. I was the one who wanted to get out of here. And I'm pushing myself toward my sister. And I wanted to go in before the man noticed me. Says, hey, I thought I told you go to the other side. Yes, but my sister there in German. Oh, okay, you go with your sister. So that was so sweet of him. I had kind of changed my mind somewhat about the Germans. And every now and then something good was done to me by a German, so that I thought there must be two kind of people there too. These miserable killers, murderers, and some between them are still honestly good people. So anyhow, I went together with my sister. They took us someplace, we never knew where, in a covered truck. But when they put us down, it was a factory. No name on it, so I don't know where I was. It was like a condo, and we got one bed for two of us, and 2 blankets. So that was more comfortable. Then they brought us every week beautiful, clean, but clean clothes. And they brought us in the food from the restaurant. And they said that here, we want you to be treated humanly. And they did treat us humanly. And we want you to survive. And, we weren't human anymore. We were like animals. Some of us worse than others. Some of them even went on the lawn, and everything was so nice and clean and orderly. And then we were telling them not to do that, and slowly straightened up. And we were there, and they were taken. They were really taken humanly. They were treated good. But then came the order to evacuate. Then we had to leave. Then we started to march, and we were marching, going, with no aims. They don't know. The Germans, Nazis don't know where we're going. We're just going. And then all of a sudden we hear the siren. Didn't mean anything to me anymore. But the Nazis were hiding and said to us, run and hide, and don't come up until we get you. I grabbed Herzi's hand, and we were running, and we come up to a field that was covered with maybe broccoli, not completely grown. And we sat down there, and we are reading, and then we saw the broccoli. And we went to it, and we ate it, and ate it, and ate it. We kept taking the top off and eating it. I don't know how we didn't get sick from it, but I bet the farmer got sick when he came out and saw all his crop gone. Yeah. Anyways, we came down, and all the transport is gone. Nobody's there. What are we going to do here? So we start to walk, and there we saw a house just above us, and there were some people standing and talking about the alarm, about the air raid. And we went up there and asked if they would give us something to eat. And they just didn't even look at us, just walked into the house without even anything. So we're going further. Then I even went to the police station to ask what to do. And they said, well, why don't you go after the transport? Because we have no place to put you, to send you. You know what? We were thinking. So we have our freedom, we don't know what to do with it. So we went and joined back the transport. And it was okay because some of them didn't even notice that we were gone. And we were just marching more. And then the SS were standing around by themselves in a circle and started to talk quietly, whispering among themselves. And then we are on the paved road, whatever, forest on each side. And this started to holler, run, run, run. Didn't explain why or what they want, just run. And we didn't move. So then they came with a rifle and started scared us, it chased us. And when I saw her coming with a rifle, I grabbed his hand and jumped into the forest. And we were running. I don't know where we got the energy, but we ran. And we came to a clearance, and there I saw a man working. And I went up and I asked him gently, could you please give us something to eat? I didn't know how many people were behind me already. And he fed us. He says, I only have milk and bread that I can give you. That's great. We didn't have milk since home. So he fed us the bread and milk. Then I asked him, would you please tell us what part of the world are we in? And he says, this is the Sudetenland. I knew that the Sudetenland was part of Czechoslovakia. And I started to stop check to him. And the girls behind me said, tell him that they're going to work for free just for food for him. And he says, no, it's no need. You are free. The war is over. That's the first time I heard that the war was over. And you can go home. They came with it.
So it's important to understand that this was one of the death marches that was going on. So there were 1,200 women that were taken to be part of this march. They were just marching them. The Nazis were marching them. They had no place to go. At the end of the, if a woman fell down or got sick or whatever, they were basically shot and executed on the road as they left. The bodies were just left on the road as they were walking. When the mob was liberated, when the war was over, out of 1,200 women that were originally on the front, about 250 survived. It's important to understand that way.
Ambulance, it took us to the hospital. And we were checked out. And new beds, some clean clothes. Then we put it to another place where we were kept for weeks. And fed, oatmeal in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And then we started to walk home. It was a long time to get home because the tracks were bombed every here and there. So then we had to walk or whatever, which way to get to the next train station. So it took us a long time. And I, in time, developed a fantasy that my mother will survive and will wait for us at home. And I was strong right from the beginning of my concentration camp time. And I was so sure that my mom will come home. And then we were coming home already. A lot of things happened on the way and all that. Finally, we are in our own hometown, and some people recognized us, and I wasn't sure, but came to tell them, yes, were our parents and sisters. And we told them, and then we go up to our property. Then I look up, There we went to our pump, and we sat down there. And I helped them to knock on the door. Nobody opened it. So we were crying outside, and then somebody called out, "Go away, this is not your house anymore, it's my home." I don't even know who it was, but I think it's from Russia. They brought in some people and took our homes. And then I said, "Mom isn't here. God, why did I survive? Mom isn't here. Our house, they won't let us in. What am I going to do? No hope. What are we going to do? What are we supposed to do?" And then I look up and I see my neighbor across the street, the Gentile neighbor lady come up, running toward us with tears in her eyes. Says, "Come, kids, come to my house, I'll take care of you." She did. I had this nightmare. I had nightmares all the time. This nightmare came up and I woke up screaming and in tears and scared because I just saw that my dad was killed there. And I saw that blood and everything. It was so real looking. And I couldn't stop crying afterwards. I kept seeing it. Usually a nightmare just, once I wake up, it goes away. This one didn't want to leave me. And I thought to myself, I better sit down and write about it. Because I won't get rid of it until then, before. And then I decided that next morning I had an old clunker typewriter and I started to type. I took typing classes, so I was able to type my story. And as I was typing, at first I didn't think it's going to come to me what to write. But it was coming so fast that I couldn't type it fast enough. And pretty soon I put out everything from my heart, everything that bothered, everything that was laid there. And I covered the page, completed the page. And the page fell down on the floor because I didn't have the thing. It felt like something fell off my shoulders, on my chest, and I was able to breathe better and felt better. I felt easier. And until I finished, I wrote it down. I didn't know what I'm going to do with it, but I wanted the story. I wanted the story done first. But then, when I started to write, then I kind of felt freer to talk about it, because until then, I couldn't talk about my experiences. And after I was writing the book, just after I started to write the book, I felt free. I could talk about it. Before I go any further, I would like to ask you to get rid of your hatred. Don't carry your hatred in your heart. Get rid of it. Talk to your teachers, talk to your counselors, talk to your parents, even to a policeman. And hatred brings prejudice and other bad things to your heart. So get it out and start now.
So, Mom spent probably 10, 12, 15 years working on her memoirs. You could see the process that she underwent, and she was able to let go of a lot of things bottled up inside of her. It was really healing, very healing for her. I spent about 10 years trying to transform what you wrote into the book. So it was a 10-year process that I worked on. And that was very special for us to do that. And the first edition, and ended up, couldn't get anybody in the company to publish the book, so I just set up my own publishing company. And we published it locally or through Amazon, and then we started to put this all together, and I put a first edition together, and I sent it to my cousins to have them look it over and see what they thought. They all thought that my mom's part was very good, which is a lot more detailed in the video. They said that the part I wrote was really pretty crappy, very low, and so I was thinking, oh, I better rethink this through. And I went through the process of trying to go into more detail, and part of that was dealing with the whole program of what my mom was focused on as far as dealing with your anger, the portraits of hatred, and forgiveness. And so forgiveness, who do I dislike the most? And pretty much it's Germans. I don't like Germans. I didn't like Germans because of what they did and so forth. I didn't like German vehicles, German anything. But if I gotta go into forgiveness, then maybe I have to go into forgiving the people that I dislike the most, which are the Germans. So I started to type Germans. It took me about an hour to type that word GERM. It took about an hour to type it up. And I remember going to visit my mom, and there's another friend there. I don't know if she's still living behind home. And I said, I came up with forgiveness to forgive the Germans. My mom told me, Danny, you can't, it isn't within your ability to forgive the Germans for what happened. You can't forgive all those Germans that did all the terrible things to the Jewish people. Only the 6 million Jews that were killed can give them forgiveness, or others that survived the camps. I said, okay, well, I can't really forgive the Nazis. I can't really comfortably forgive the live Germans that were there and looked the other way and didn't want to try to make a difference. But I can forgive the Germans that weren't born yet. And so that became a very healing approach for me to come up with. I can forgive the Germans that have been born since then. And we were in Hawaii. My mom, we were kind of finished up the book. We were taking a little break, and she fell down a couple of stairs and bashed up her knees. And we went to the Kaiser Permanente in Maui. Kaiser Permanente in Maui is not like Kaiser Permanente in California. It's completely friendly, cooperative. We went there. The lady that was in charge of doing I'm forgetting the word again. What's that? The X-rays. Check out her knees. She's like, we go to visit her. She's like got blonde hair. She's probably in her 40s. Real sweet lady, real happy. There's beautiful pictures that have been drawn by students, little kids that have come and see her. She is just like the happiest lady around. Okay, is this better? Anyhow, so I asked, can I go and with my mom and take her X-rays? And she goes, sure, come on back. You can come behind the glass door where it's secure for people and get your X-ray and probably take an X-ray of your mom. Right? So I go back there with her. Guys are here would not let me do that. I go there I am. Getting better. Can you hear me? Anyhow, so he goes to visit my mom, and she turns around and walks back to see me, and her whole disposition has changed. Is now something bad, something has affected her whole disposition. Goes back, takes the X-ray, goes back to see my mom, and as she's positioning her, she sees my mom's tattoo, and she says, "You can Auschwitz, aren't you?" My mom says, "Yes." And she then breaks down crying. My mom to forgive her. And my mom goes, "Why am I forgiving you?" And it's because my uncle was one of the Hitler's advisors. And my mom says, "Well, because your uncle was bad, did bad evil things, you have nothing to be forgiven for. To ask for forgiveness, you didn't do anything. You weren't even born again." I thought that was really interesting how that happened. You know, aware of that young German woman asking for forgiveness. And then we were on the plane flying back, and we're sitting on the airplane. My mom, me, and this younger lady sitting next to me, and I start talking with her, and she's from Turkey. And so we're talking, and she told me her 20 minutes. And I mentioned, what about the how's that?
Just hold it close.
But basically, I asked her about the genocide of the Armenians. And this lady, this young woman, got so upset that what do you mean a genocide of the Armenians? We were just protecting ourselves from them. They're the ones that attacked us. And blah, blah, blah. She just got into this whole big thing. I realized don't talk about this to her, but it showed me the difference between what the Germans had done as a country, where they admitted what they did. And that's a real key as a key point, versus based on this one experience with this lady, where Turkey has never admitted that they did anything wrong to the Armenians. So that was very important for me to see that part. And then about 3 weeks later, I'm back home, and my wife is saying it's too big down here. I need to go on a special healing retreat where I'm going to just eat raw vegetables for a week in San Diego. So I go to this place, and I'm working on that. And there's this young German lady, probably in her 30s, that was also there, and she's speaking with a thick accent. Just friendly, whatever. So the next day, I'm talking with these ladies that were there, and they're asking me what I did. And I go, well, I did affordable housing, different projects. They really didn't care about that. I mentioned about the book that we just published. Oh, well, we're all interested. Tell us about it. I started to explain to them about the Holocaust, which they didn't really know anything about. And when I'm all done, after talking to them, I turn around. Who's standing right behind me was this German lady. And she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her. And she goes, Dennis, are you going to go grab lunch now? And I go, yeah. And she goes, can we go together? And I go, okay. I don't know what to expect. So I'm walking with her. I'm working in the quad area. And then she breaks down, and she starts begging me to forgive her. And this was like, oh, what am I forgiving you for? You know, and she wasn't even born then. I was not born then. But she's begging me to forgive her for what the Nazis did, what the Germans did, as a second generation person. So it's interesting how once, I think part of it's going through this whole process of learning to forgive, that it starts to open a lot of doors that start to happen. I think it's important to realize that happens a lot of time when you step into something or come with an idea, and you start to work on that or move forward. If it's a really great idea, inevitably another group of people will think of it too. So you got to move forward when you want to make a difference, because that's important.
So Dennis, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yo.
So we're at the end of class, but fortunately the professor who teaches the discussion section is here, and he has just decided that the discussion section is going to start 15 minutes late. So I would like to give people, students, an opportunity to ask Dennis questions, if you wish.
Yes, you.
How do you think your mom would want to be remembered?
I think part of it's how do you remember her? Watching her. How did it affect you? What did you learn from it? I think you do it. Go ahead.
I mean, it is an eye-opening thing, even if you've heard the story before, even if you've gone to the Holocaust Museum, for example, sometimes it gets put in the back burner of your brain. And when it hits you like, kind of like, whoa, kind of like it's weird that it's not weird that it's happened, but it's just weird that I able to kind of put this in the back of my mind when it is something so significant, but hearing it again is something that I think is important because it reminds me that this stuff did exist. This is stuff we can talk about. And like we were saying towards the end, like how she was saying towards the end, hatred, prejudice, nastiness, all of that can be kind of stopped if you just take a second and think about where this hatred is coming from, where the prejudice is coming from. That's usual. I thought.
I think what you just said is ideal for what would make her happy to know that it's you and all only more of you that are here in the classes. And I'm touched to be able to present this to all of you, that you are all taking this program to learn more about it, because with our dear world that we're in right now and all of the hatred that's being spread and all of the focus on separating our society, separating our people, it's important to be able to realize that there are a lot of good people out there, and there's a lot of importance that you as a younger group can make a difference. And that would be the ideal dream or hope that mom would have and that I have, is that you all can get involved with whatever future you go into, to remember what she went through, and to remember that you can make a difference, even if it's just the one person when you see something happening bad, where you step in, or maybe more. But that's the key piece, and that's what I'm trying to move forward with. What we're trying to do with the fellowship with other programs that were available. So I'm open to suggestion. I'm open to any kind of interaction, because this is what started happening more about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Yes.
Your
mom would be very proud, because I was privileged to know her. And I know she's smiling at you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.
So I'm sorry, I haven't started, but so with this fellowship, what was your goal for it, or what do you hope to will come out of it?
I'm hoping that individuals that sign up to become part of the fellowship and do similar to what I've done with my mom to other people that have gone through genocides and so forth. And it's not just the Holocaust, but it's everything. And I think that's a piece, but it's also for the individuals to be able to learn more how to become leaders. Because we need people. We need young people, which you are all young compared to me, to become leaders, to be able to step forward and make a difference on what's positive and what's good to bring people together. And that's what I'm hoping that could happen to the staff. You have any thoughts on that?
I think you said it perfectly.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
When you were growing up, did you know your mother's story? And how old was she when she finally began to start typing it out?
He was probably in her 70s. He started typing up the word, and no, I didn't know. I knew that the Germans killed my grandparents. I knew that there was all this bad stuff that happened, but it wasn't something that was a detailed dialogue or discussion. My parents focused on us becoming, fitting into America, and appreciating what we could do, what they could do here in this country, and getting education and learning to be able to just do things with good education. As my dad said, they can take everything away from you, but they can't take your education. So it's important for you to learn. And that's from my dad, who didn't really go into school. He was more playing around and having fun. Yes, sir.
So your father was a soldier in the Czech army when the Germans took the Sudetenland. So what ended up happening? I saw that he was sent to some sort of camp and was worked there. What ended up happening with him after all that.
He was sent to a labor camp, different slave labor camps. And I'll be putting the book together, so I'm working on it.
But mention the internship.
And maybe we will have an intern, if one of you would be interested in helping me out with that related. So,
Dennis is looking for an intern. Take note.
so yeah, I'm available to you.
Sure.
So he was, while he was in camp, a lot of different stories, but one of the stories which I'll mention was he was in the Kiev, in the labor camp there. The Germans had him and two others start chopping wood. And while they were chopping wood, a Nazi German soldier, a sergeant, came up and told my dad, stand at attention. In front of him. So my dad stood at attention, and then the sergeant belted him in the face and knocked him down. And I said, stand up again. And my dad stood up. He says, my dad told him, if you try to hit me again, I'm going to get you back. And my dad was strong and tough. And so that Nazi sergeant went to go hit him. And my dad, with his one hand in the throat, the other hand on his ear, knocked him down, flattened him. The sergeant got up, out of breath, grabbed for his gun, and he didn't have it with him. He was unarmed. So then he went to go back to his barracks to get his gun. And the other two workers there said, what did you just do? He's going to come kill you. And my dad said, he was going to kill me anyways. I've seen what they do. They'll just start beating, hitting you, going to kill you. And then they said, well, wait, we'll go talk to Yoshka. Yoshka was a tailor. In the old days, tailors, people who learned to be tailors, it was one of the lowliest positions. But when you were in a camp, the officers in charge like to have their own personal tailor. And so the commander took him in, and Yoshika was the commander's tailor. So those two guys went to tell the tailor. Yoshika told the commander. Commander came out in time, and then he basically told the sergeant, enough is enough, and he shipped the sergeant off to the Russian front. That was a story I always heard. It was one of the ones that was like, okay, sure, Dad, okay. So we went in 1991 to Europe, and then on the way back, we stopped in New York, and Yoshika was still alive. He survived. And we're sitting, visiting him, and he starts to tell a story, and it's the same story. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second. He's telling the same story that Dad said, and he didn't talk about it before I got here, so it must be true. And those are different things that happen. So it was interesting. Basically, those are all stories. He ended up, after years and years being in the camps, he ended up then getting sent to Auschwitz, and then to Buchenwald, which is a very rough place, and he almost died there several times. And I just have to, as my friend Ivan here is from Hungary, says, get that story written. I'm doing that, Ivan.
Joshua.
Besides the don't let anger turn into hatred, what is another lesson that your parents I guess taught you that not strictly comes, but most likely comes from them being Holocaust survivors?
I think it's important to not to ignore. When you see something wrong happening to someone being abused, someone being picked on in school or whatever, it's important to step forward and help that person out. If it's risky and it's going to be dangerous, then it's important to go and get help, but not to look the other way. And I think that was part of the reality that happened throughout Europe during the Nazis. Is most people looked the other way. They didn't get involved to try to make a difference. They were scared. And there were many that did try, and a lot of them lost their lives and their religions, Gentiles. But that's a piece that was important. And it's just basically to get the truth out there. It's not this hatred, which I'm sad to say I'm hearing so much of it now. It's important for us to make a difference. And we're all powerful to make a difference if we all step forward. We individually step forward. Does that help? Yes.
When your parents arrived in the States, do you know, were there any special programs, help, government aid public papers, or were they really just talking about him privately?
They weren't allowed to come unless they had permission from the government to like immigrate here. My uncle Leonard, who was in the US Army, was able to sign a document. And after a year or two, they got approval to come in 49. When they came to America, they almost got turned back and found asylum because my dad had a large heart. But they finally let him come through. And they basically came and saw, we had some relatives in New York. They stayed there for a couple nights and then took a train to California, because that's where my mom's sister and her brother were now living. And back when they came there, they had to basically start with nothing. There were no government programs. There was no government funding. There was nothing available to help them out. They had to do it on their own. They had to work hard. So they learned language, and so forth. So there were no benefits.
So we are running out of time. Do we have a few more quick questions, Isabel?
No, she just had her hand up for a while.
Carly, go ahead.
What's the most important piece of advice from either you or your mom that you learned when you were learning how to forgive people? I'm sorry.
I'm still having to keep practicing and learning that. It's just to be calm with it and to think about what you're saying before you say it, and to learn to forgive, to be able to say, I'm sorry, and to basically talk to the person, get communication going between the person you're dealing with, and so forth. And it's a process that I'm still working on.
And then with your mom's sister, did she ever do any talks with her, like talk to schools together?
Excuse me?
Your mom's sister, did they ever do talks together?
No.
No, do they remain close after?
We're close, but Helen, that was her name to me. She never talked about it.
Okay.
It was never something she never did relate to. Most of the survivors, just of the Memoirs, the ones from Memoir that survived, they either stayed pretty much in New York or in LA. And most of them, they just lived life. They worked hard. They celebrated being alive, and they were able to enjoy their life, which was really something special. And that was something that was going on. But most of them did not go out of their way to talk or explain the stories. I started to interview my aunts and uncles before Spielberg started his program. And so I remember interviewing my aunt, and he's telling my dad's sister, and she's telling me the story. I was like, my eyes just, I don't know what she's saying. I never told anybody about what happened. And I videotaped it. And it was like, it was just amazing to hear what and how it was that she went through in her story. And everyone's story is so special. How they survived. But most of them didn't talk about